conquering the monsters of today in a unique and modern way. It's the Modern Monster Sendoff.
Mafia, wake up, wake up.
You have created a monster and it will destroy you.
Our final modern monster movie, Eric, that we will ever do.
Yeah, we are done with these things forever.
Forever.
Oh boy. No, I mean, there's still so much. I mean, this is a series that I think it could keep us going for another. This is the 21st century standalone monster films. I mean, as long as the world continues, I mean,
Yep.
we have got.
As long as it continues.
Yeah, we have got 77 more years. Alex, is my math right there? So
Yeah.
we've got 77 more years to cover
Exactly.
in this 21st century modern monster movie series.
Right. Yeah,
So-
yeah.
We'll see. It's our send-off for now until there's something else that we want to watch.
Right. It's exactly right.
Or we run out of other ideas. So cool, man. Welcome back to the Monsters vs. Men podcast. This is the bargain basement of the monster podcasting airways, where two friends try to stay alive and stay connected by chatting about weekly monster movies. This week, as we stay alive, we're discussing giant monster movies. Believe it or not, Alex.
Yeah. I'm waiting. Believe it or not, what?
We're discussing giant monster movies on this podcast today.
Oh, I thought you were getting ready to drop some knowledge on me. You said
No, nothing.
I was waiting for
No.
the other shoe to drop.
No, nothing profound today. Just giant monster movies, which are
Yeah.
profound in their
It's
own
an
right,
exciting
Alex.
day. That's right. Yeah, that's right. They're all profound. Every single one that we talk about today.
So what we're going to do is, the way we do our recap episodes, we start off with kind of a Q&A where we don't know what each other is going to ask, really. We don't know how each other is going to respond. We have a kind of an open Q&A just about the series as a whole. Then we'll get into our awards, where we can only use one of the films from the series once, and then we'll rank. Now, we only have 5 movies from this specific series, but we're going to incorporate the other movies from our first 21st century monster movie madness. We're going to incorporate those movies into our ranking as well, in order to have an interesting conversation about our favorite standalone monster movies of the century. So let's jump in, Alex, shall we?
Let's do it.
I believe you have a question for me to start things off.
I sure do, sir. I sure do.
I do, sure, sir.
I do, sure. I don't know what's wrong with me today. Of the films that we've watched, Aaron, are there any that, while watching, especially some of the older ones, where you were watching it and thinking, wow, I really miss that? And that is a specific element of filmmaking or tone or something that just really you don't find prevalent today.
I think you know what I'm going to say on this one. I think you're.
It may have been a little too pointed because I have a feeling I know what you're going to say.
You
but I'm not sure.
just kind of teed me off to get this discussion rolling, right? To get the fire burning, to get the coal churning, you might say, with Reign of
really gonna
Fire. Our first movie of the series. Honestly, Alex, I think I gushed about this movie a whole lot in our episode. And what I was gushing about was just the unironic sincerity of the entire venture. The entire film, there's a couple of comedic parts, but it's never poking fun at itself, ever. It takes itself incredibly seriously. It could be a turnoff for some people how seriously it takes itself, and I think was a turnoff for some people. I think that style of filmmaking kind of reached a climax, maybe, with Reign of Fire. Reign of Fire was the movie, Alex. It reached its peak, and then general audiences were like, "No, this is too sincere, too sincere,
too sincere.
We can't match the sincerity of this." And so instead, we're left with our ironic, sideways glancing, self-deprecating, and
self-defecating
and deprecating fantasy films. So yeah, I kind of miss that just wholehearted original sincerity that you get in a film like Reign of Fire. What about you, Alex? Is that what you were thinking when you were formulating this question?
There's two movies in particular. Yes, Reign of Fire 100% was the one for all the reasons that you said. Just that full committal I loved. But the other one that I had in mind, Eric, was the humor of Big Man Japan.
Yeah.
I still don't think about the end of that movie when I reflect on it.
I know.
And I just love the humor and the absurdity of all the sequences. Some work better than others, but it really took me back to a time and place where humor was a lot different and at times very eccentric. Now, maybe it's just because I'm older and I'm not watching Adult Swim at night much anymore. Like, my only touchstone for any of that type of humor, I guess, now is like Rick and Morty. But other than that, I don't feel like I'm in that era of comedy anymore. And so that really took me back. And yes, I really miss that.
Well, I think we're on to something there, Alex, though, I think there's a connection between those two films, really, in that it's just a different era, right? Both of them are taking risk in different ways, and both of them are unique in different ways. We just don't have, I don't know, maybe I'm looking at this maybe through nostalgic lenses at this point, but we don't have quite the level of eccentricity in most of our modern big release movies. Not that Big Man Japan was a big release or necessarily Reign of Fire, but Reign of Fire was at least a Hollywood production, right?
Right.
We don't see that level of quirkiness, I would say, of complete uniqueness in most of our modern blockbusters.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that is maybe the connective tissue there. I miss it.
Well, you and Cece watched Eight-Legged Freaks. Looking back on that film, Alex, do you think we should have replaced any of the 5 films we watched for this miniseries with Eight-Legged Freaks?
No, not really. Now, it could have been a good follow-up to Big Man Japan, honestly, instead of A Monster Calls. And that's nothing against A Monster Calls, just tonally, I think it kind of...
A little bit different?
They had a bit of a similar... Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, yeah, right, very different. But I mean, after Big Man Japan, kind of keeping up with that more comedic tone could have been pretty fun. I honestly would have absolutely loved to hear your input for that movie, especially since you've never seen it before, right?
Nope.
I don't think you would have liked it. I don't know. It really would have come down to if you were going to connect with that humor pretty quickly. If you didn't, you were going to hate it probably. If you did, then you probably would have been laughing a good bit and would have really enjoyed it. But but that movie does take a while to kind of you figure out the vibe on. It took me a good chunk of it to like, oh, this is the tone. This is what they're going for. So would I have replaced them? I don't know. If I replaced any of the movies that we watched, though, I would have to say it would have been A Monster Calls. But that movie was kind of interesting from a genre mashup
Yeah.
standpoint.
Right.
So I don't know if I quite would have gotten rid of that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was very different.
Do you wish we had replaced any of these?
I don't think so. I mean, I was looking right now to see if Eight-Legged Freaks was available so I could watch it. I wanted to watch it if I had time before this recap, but I just hadn't had time yet. But it looks like it's on not HBO Max, but Max, Alex. So I could probably catch it there.
Yeah. I would love for you to watch it and just like we could have
a little MVM Plus content on it.
A little MVM Plus about it and just
that'd be fun.
Chat about the movie.
Yeah, for sure. Another just a follow-up question to that, Alex. Are there movies still that you think we need to cover if we were to continue this series? I mean, we did have our specific criterion, right? Like these are standalone monster films. They're not connected to sequels, prequels. They are from this century. That limits our choices. Were there any films though that you can think of that probably should have made this cut?
Oh, that's a really good question.
Or films that just didn't fit the criterion for one reason or another that you're like, this is a 21st century monster movie we need to watch.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of series out there that we could have easily included in here or watched. Now the thing, like, you know, I like I'm not ashamed to say that I do enjoy some Transformers movies, you know, and I know Eric is like one of the bigger fans of that series.
Huge fan.
But like that's a series that I actually probably would have enjoyed. In terms of other giant monster movies, a lot of them that I would be interested in are things that we probably would have honestly covered. Like, I would have loved, like, they wouldn't have been giant monsters necessarily. Mm-hmm. It would have been something closer to, like, a Hellboy movie.
Yeah, this is true. So that's another cool piece of our criterion, right? We are actually looking at giant monster movies. That is another criterion here.
Even though Annihilation just kind of has a normal size.
Annihilation is kind of that, it was borderline. It was borderline.
Right. And so that's a tough one. Eric, what I'm trying to do is because if you remember, back when we did this series, you created a list of all of the monster movies.
I was just about to pull that up too, Alex.
Oh, actually. Really?
Yes. Because we had like 50 movies on that list. So I'm pulling that up. There are a couple movies that I know I want to see at some point, but it's been difficult to catch them for a variety of reasons. Some being like availability, but without like the standalone aspect, we still definitely need to cover Cloverfield at some point.
Oh, right.
I've had people actually ask me about that, like people that live in real life, in person. Like Cloverfield, have you guys watched that? Like, I've seen it, but we haven't covered it for the podcast. So,
but the only issue with something like Cloverfield is that it doesn't quite pass the standalone.
Well, that's why it wouldn't fit into the series. But just in general, outside of that criteria, we definitely need to cover that at some point, even though it doesn't fit. I mean, you've got Big Ass Spider. Alex would be a good Eight-Legged Freaks follow-up.
Oh, Eric.
Evolution, you want to see?
Yeah, so
I know you love Evolution.
I do, and it's one of those movies that might be in that Eight-Legged Freaks realm where I loved it back in the day, but when I watch it, I may not like it quite as much, but that is one that I really would love to see again.
Yeah.
Man, I used to love that movie.
Yeah. Michael Herndon's recommendation, Shadow in the Cloud, I kind of want to see.
Oh, yeah. I heard very not great things about it, but
Michael, we will trust Michael.
Well, did he recommend it, or did he just...
I don't remember.
Did he recommend it? I don't know. I want to see it though because it's got a pretty solid poster.
Yeah, it does have a great poster,
which is enough to sell me half the time.
I want to see. So, well, I've seen one of these and I haven't seen the other, but I think they would be good foils and good add some balance into the series. Okja, I think we watched that together one time. Did we watch that?
Yeah, we did watch that together.
I think that would be it'd be an interesting movie. It doesn't quite fit the genre tropes, but that would be fun. And then Love and Peace, I've heard good things about.
Oh, I've never even heard of that.
I want to see that Gamera-esque film, kind of an indie sort of film, Alex. Cool. So those are two that I would like to see for sure.
Yeah, that does sound cool. I think the only other one that I'm aware of that I was interested in was a movie that came out, and I wanted to see it when it came out. I just never really did. Called Grabbers. It's supposed to be pretty good, but it was a pretty small film. I don't know why I think this, and I can't remember. It might be an Irish movie, but I wonder if I'm thinking that because there's something that to survive, you have to get drunk because then they're not interested in you. So all the characters are having to get drunk to to not get killed. So yeah, I think that would be the other one.
Thinking about the movies that we just watched for this miniseries, the 5 films, are there any of those films that you think should have made our original Monster Madness when we first did this series?
Absolutely.
For one reason or another. Which ones?
All right. I had this full. Oh, there it is. Okay. So I love Troll Hunter, but I like Rain of Fire more. Attack the Block was pretty good.
Were those two go up against each other?
Yeah. So I'm going to give you the matchup. Some of them, we ended up covering both up for some reason. I can't remember why. But yeah, so Rain of Fire versus Troll Hunter. I would pick Rain of Fire over Troll Hunter. And I did. Remember?
Me too.
I wanted everyone that I wanted to win lost.
That's right. Yeah, looking back on it, I would take Rain of Fire too. All right, what's the next one?
Annihilation against Attack the Block. I would go Annihilation.
I would go Annihilation for which film I like more.
Yeah.
I might go Attack the Block for its sort of fit into our series. So I'm okay with that original choice.
Okay. And, that wasn't really a giant monster, but that's okay.
Neither one, really, right? That's similar in that way, which is interesting. Yeah.
The next matchup was The Meg and Underwater, which I didn't want Underwater to win that time because I had just done another podcast.
That's right. We did.
I think we had done Kaiju Weekly.
Yeah.
So I was like for the Meg, but I like Underwater more than the Meg.
I do too. I mean, I think the Meg is a fun film for the series, but yeah, Underwater, I'm okay with that choice.
The next one was Rampage and the Host, and we had already reviewed Rampage before this thing even started, but it somehow got voted on. And I would go The Host, which is what we went with. The next one was Colossal and Love and Monsters. Now, we ended up reviewing both of these in that series.
We did.
And I'm not quite sure why, because that's the case for a lot of these in this next bracket. But out of those two, though, Eric, if I had to pick, Colossal.
Yeah.
The next one, Psycho Gorman and The Ritual. Hands down, The Ritual.
Yeah, we ended up watching... it's weird. You're right. We watched both of those. Yeah, The Ritual for me too.
And then the next bracket, we didn't watch both competitors. Okay. I don't know why we did that. And then it was The Mist versus Big Man Japan. For sanity's sake, Big Man Japan.
Yeah, I think The Mist was it was interesting to put into that series for sure. Yeah.
It was interesting because you had never seen it, and I wanted you to enjoy the torment.
Yeah. I'm glad it was in the series. That was a fun episode to record. It was not a fun movie to watch.
Yeah, right. And then the last one, A Monster Calls and Howl from Beyond the Fog. I would... that's a really tough one because I feel like, if I'm remembering right, we both liked Howl from Beyond the Fog, but maybe not quite as good as we were hoping it would be.
Yeah, I think so. That's an interesting. I think those are some good pairings we got there. There's some. They just kind of
really
tie together
were.
pretty well. So yeah,
yeah,
good.
The Mist and Big Man Japan, like that's just like such a perfect fit. But you're right
That's
though.
exactly.
Most of them are like really interesting fits together.
Yeah, cool. What movie surprised you the most of these 5 films and this go around? I know we didn't watch as many, but there was such a variety in these films. Which surprises did you have?
The biggest surprise was that I loved Rain of Fire more than I used to, which is saying something. I couldn't believe how much I enjoyed Rain of Fire this much longer and how amazing its special effects were. I cannot believe how good those effects look still.
Holds up. Holds up.
That's the one that probably surprised me the most. Big Man Japan, I was surprised by how interested I was in its main character. Because I was immediately put off by him, but also immediately grew very interested in him. Mm. Yeah. So I would say those were my biggest surprises. What about you, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, I think the film that surprised me the most was Big Man Japan. With some of the scenes in that movie. Big Man Japan. I did not expect to see a giant monster romance sort of thing. Did not expect to see that. So, here we are.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, before we get into our awards, MVM Plus today, we talk about a couple new movies that are coming out here this week, and we discuss our next film series. We have some recommendations for this film series, but announcing here for the first time, we are doing an animated monster series. That could be anime. It could be animated. We discuss potential films that we're going to watch. We've picked out our film for next week, which we'll announce here at the end. But we do have a couple more recommendations. We'd like to get other bargain basement recommendations before we solidify that list. That's over at patreon.com/MVMpod. Become a bargain basement. Listen to that episode. Give us your feedback. Let us know what you want to hear.
Absolutely, man. I can't wait. I'm so excited for this.
All right. Well, let's get into our awards then. Staple awards. Remember, Alex, we're trying to use a film only once. I actually didn't come up with
honorable mentions.
My runner-ups. I did not do runner-ups this time, but I will. I'm sure I'll have some impromptu runner-ups. It's just we had a limited movies to choose from, so I figured there would be some overlap here. So I'm curious to see what you will choose. But who'd you have compelling character, Alex?
My compelling character was Masaru from Big Man Japan.
Nice, good choice. Yeah,
I really enjoyed this character and his growth. Again, it is a shame that the film leaves him behind in the finale, but I found his the growth of his, like, your sympathy for him and his background and all of that. He just really began to intrigue me as a character in the film. So he's got an interesting background and just like this weird sadness and comedic nature of himself, and also like a weird level of dumbness.
For sure.
But I really like it. Hey, but maybe that's what happens when you put all that electricity through your body.
Yeah.
What about you, Eric?
Mine could only be Van Zandt.
That's who I put originally, and I deleted it.
Well, what's funny is I put Big Man Japan originally and then deleted it, so we canceled each other out there, Alex. I mean, is there a character quite like Van Zandt? I don't think there is, right? I mean, talk about a guy who just wears who he is on his sleeve. I love how hard this guy goes, right? And it's not in any, again, to go back to what I was saying at the beginning of the episode, it's not done in any sort of like, look at this guy, he's over the top sort of way. It's completely sincere, right? This guy, they're presenting him as a sincere character who forms these deep bonds within like moments because he has to keep his team together. Very interesting character, interesting death. and memorable death for sure. Yeah, and just overall, he helps that movie make that movie what it is for sure.
Absolutely, good pick. Good pick.
Yeah.
Eric, what about your most memorable line award?
My most memorable line award
Oh boy,
goes to the line that like I just think is probably the dumbest line, right? One of the dumber lines that we hear in these movies, but it's one that I guess sticks out to me, and it's not about the ones we lose. It's about the ones we save. From
It's
the
funny,
Meg,
Eric.
of course.
we both picked our lines from the Meg. I picked
nice.
Origin Crew. We are good for insertion.
Oh my gosh. Of course you did, of course.
Of course I did.
Can't believe the acting, Alex.
I gotta give it to Matthew McConaughey as Van Zandt. Dude, yeah, like you said, he wears his heart on his sleeve, and he's always like rah-rahing the troops, got tears in his eyes, while also keeping like a completely level voice. Dude, it's awesome. Again, I said it during it, and it sounded ridiculous, but I think we both agreed. Like, this is an acting showcase for Matthew McConaughey somehow.
Yeah,
It really shows his chops.
But what's funny is we have flipped, Alex. I chose Hitoshi Matsumoto as Big Man Japan, right? Because that performance, as I said in that episode, is just multi-layered because you've got a character that is he is faking what he wants himself to look like on screen while still betraying who he actually is without me. It's just, it's multifaceted, right? And I really think that movie does not happen without his performance. So Matsumoto's performance as Big Man Japan, the sixth, I believe it is. Is a great performance.
Yeah, absolutely. He's so good.
What about your that's a good shot award, Alex?
Yeah, there's a few from this movie, and I had a hard time choosing. I didn't know whether I wanted to choose the one that I selected during our episode or another one we talked about. But I'm gonna go with the one I selected during our episode, which is Annihilation, and it's the episode. Yep, it's the beach, dude. It's just a really kind of an eerie, quiet, but visually, it just has a lot going on. I really like it.
Are you talking about the one where the lighthouse is burning in the background?
Yeah.
It's so good. Oh, it's so good. Yeah. I'm going to go with Annihilation too. I think there's so many shots you could choose from Annihilation, honestly. That movie is just the most beautiful of these movies to watch. But it's it's what I chose in that episode. It's that reflected glass shot. When
that's the one I almost switched to, Eric.
Natalie Portman's character and Oscar Isaac's character are across from each other, and their hands are reflected in the glass. It's awesome. Really cool.
Really cool.
All right, man. Unique award. You got one this week?
Yeah. My unique award is the best 2-for-1, and that goes to the Meg. Because they packed two movies into one. And I enjoyed both movies. I just didn't think they went well together in some of their cobbled together nature.
Oh, yeah. This is funny, Alex. This is funny.
Oh, no.
Neither one of us chose any awards from Monster Calls.
Oh.
No. But my unique award is going to fix that a little bit. And I will say I've got some monster superlatives that I'd like to hand out, Alex. So the monster who most likely to be an academic and storyteller is the monster from A Monster's Call. A Monster Calls, not A Monster's Call. Monster Calls. I mean, if you take Liam Neeson and you put him in any animated character, it automatically doubles his intelligence and his wise nature. Definitely. So Liam Neeson, as the monster. I have got the scariest monster. The scariest monster goes to the talking bear.
Oh yeah, definitely.
We've got the deadliest monster. Deadliest monster goes to Mama Dragon.
Okay.
Rain of Fire. We've got the swimsiest monster. That goes to the Meg. You can tell they're just getting higher and higher quality. The swimsiest monster goes to the Meg. And we've got the sexiest monster to Purple Underwear Big Man Japan.
Okay, I didn't know which creature or person you were going to give that to.
So we've got just a great choices all around, Alex.
Yeah.
All right, man. It is time to rank these films. Looks like my count, I've got 18. You have 19. You include Eight-Legged Freaks in there?
I did.
Okay, good.
I did.
We'll start at the bottom and then we'll work our way up. We probably won't reach consensus on these. I know we have some disagreements because we've already had this discussion before. A similar conversation in our first recap of Monster Madness. So we'll go through these, kind of work our way up. We'll see where we disagree and where we agree. My bottom film is The Mist.
Okay. My bottom film is Psycho Gorman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, a lot of my list, Eric, just for a little context on how I created my list, especially since some of these movies are from a while ago, is what movies would I watch again? And also recommendability in some ways. Obviously, my favorites are going to be at the top, no matter what. But that is kind of how I ended up ranking mine.
Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah, I think recommendability is a good thing to consider here. Some of mine fit into that. Some of mine are more personal enjoyment. But all right, so your bottom, Psycho Gorman, mine was The Mist. My next bottom is Rampage.
Okay. I'm not too far off on you on that one. But my second to the bottom is one that people are going to hate me for. Nope. Yeah. And I've stated my reasons why. I don't think after Psycho Gorman, I don't think any of these are bad movies. Just to be clear with our listeners, I think everything else is enjoyable to phenomenal. And Nope is enjoyable for its themes and some of the things it might or might not be saying, but I don't think it actually works cohesively for me.
Everyone, no one's going to be disappointed in you, Alex, because everybody already knows your Jordan Peele bias. So
I tried to go into that one, and then he's made some dumb choices. But anyway, Eric, I'll go ahead and go next since you have already hit one of mine. My third from the bottom is Rampage.
Yeah,
I actually find this one to be pretty enjoyable, but I do think that the pacing is a little rough in some ways. So. It's an easy recommend. That one's an easy recommend for me to a monster movie fan or giant monster movie fan. But it's always one with a little caveat, and you say it's a fun movie, but it's not.
That one's a pass for me. That one's a pass. I don't think I recommend that to too many people. It had some for me off-putting humor, and it just
I forgot you couldn't get down with the humor.
Yeah, it wasn't very memorable either. It doesn't even show that I logged it in Letterboxd, so I must.
Well, I had a lot I didn't log in Letterboxd, so you're not alone. I had like 6 of these I hadn't put in here apparently.
My next from the bottom is Love and Monsters. So that's my number 16.
All right, and my number, since I have one more than you. I'll hit the next 2.
Yeah,
my next one is Howl from Beyond the Fog. It's a great experiment. I love the tone, but that's kind of where it stops with my love of the movie. It's it's how different it is and the creativity in it that elevate everything else.
Yeah, I went back and forth. Mine is higher up, but I went back and forth on thinking about that one. My initial ranking is probably higher than I would rank it now because I appreciate a lot of what it does. But yeah, I would probably notch it down and could be convinced to bring it down on my list once it gets there. Go ahead. What's your next one?
My next one's Eight-Legged Freaks.
Okay.
This is one that I found some enjoyability in for sure, but it's definitely not for everybody. It's not as good as I remember, which is probably the biggest hit to it for me. But I did have some really good laughs, and there's some pretty fun moments in the film. But That one's one of the harder ones to maybe recommend for me, actually, just because, man, that humor is just from a different time, and it just takes a while to get to feel the vibe, I think. But once you do, if you do, caveat, if you do, I think you'll find a good time here.
Well, apparently it's better than Nope, so I definitely need to check it out.
Yeah, definitely. It is, without a doubt.
My number 15 is The Meg.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That's
I mean, The
fair.
Meg, yeah. I would recommend that to a lot of people. It's not in the do not recommend category. Love and Monsters I'd recommend to a lot of people, too, I should say. So it's not in the do not recommend. My only do not recommends are The Mist and Rampage on this list.
Okay.
Yeah. Those are my only two Gabra tier, in other words.
Yeah, I think I only have one Gabra tier, and that's Psycho Gorman. Yeah, let me double check. Yeah, I only have one Gabra tier, and that's Psycho Gorman. All right, my next
14.
one, Eric.
Yeah.
The good version of Godzilla 1998, Troll.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Troll's a bit higher on my list, but yeah, you're right. That we had a good time with that one. That was kind of a standalone, not necessarily part of the series, but we're recapturing it in this series.
Right, exactly. And then, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say next, I'm only going next because, like I said, I do have one more movie than you, I guess, is Attack the Block. This is one that was pretty enjoyable this time around. I had a few gripes about, but overall, I enjoyed it, and I'm excited to see the second one, Eric.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I'd say excited, but I am interested in seeing the second one.
Yeah, I forgot temporarily that there is a second one, so this won't be a standalone film anymore that we can include on this list, Alex.
I know.
I think you're one ahead of me now, actually, because you doubled up twice.
Okay.
So I'll go 14 is A Monster Calls.
Okay.
Relatively low on my list, I guess, just above The Meg. And then Big Man Japan. So 3 of the films that we watched this time are 1, 2, 3, kind of my 13, 14, 15 on this list. So they're relatively low compared to most of the films. So maybe our audience made the right choice first time around for most of these picks.
And my next one, Eric, is The Mist. Not one I can recommend to a lot of people. I think overall, I really like the movie. It's just the ending that really stings, which is a big part of it, right? This is why anyone even remembers this movie, if we're being honest. Yeah. That and the grocery store scenes. With the cult and stuff like that. But I think how it breaks down its view on how people act in a crisis, I think is really interesting. So I did move it up, but this is not one. Yeah, you don't agree with it as much as I do. But I think I wouldn't recommend this movie to really anybody, but I did move it up higher on my list because I do think it is pretty interesting.
Yeah. My number 12 is Troll Hunter, sitting right there. It's actually nestled here. So maybe this goes to my comedy love, Alex. We've kind of got a series of films that are nestled together. We got Big Man Japan, and then Troll Hunter, and then my next one is Psycho Gorman after that. They're all sort of have this quirky humor to them, a little bit of satire in all 3 of those. So they're right there as a group. Yeah, it's interesting.
Very.
What's your next one?
My next one is A Monster Calls. An enjoyable movie that I think I would recommend to certain people. Really, the things that elevate this movie are the watercolor painting moments and the stories that are told by the monster. For me, I think that they're really fascinating. Yeah. And I would like movies that took that approach to all of its like events, right?
Yeah.
You know, like they told stories like that that are complex, like some of those. But I don't feel like we get a lot of movies that are. There are some for sure, but yeah, I thought that was really interesting. I did give that movie that's part of my I want that more award as well, is that I wanted more of those watercolor stories.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
My number 10 film, so number 11 was Psycho Gorman. My number 10, top 10 now, we've got Colossal. Solid film. Again, kind of got some humor elements in there, but also gets pretty serious pretty quick. So Colossal is my number 10 film. What about you?
For me, my next one is The Meg. I think I enjoyed this one overall a little more than you.
Yeah.
I don't know if I felt like all the sequences went on too long, but I definitely felt like it was poorly paced and that it's two movies crammed into one in a lot of ways. So, but I still have a fun time. And I think, again, Jason Statham is really great in this movie. He's great in both films in this movie.
Yep. My number 9 is Troll, which you already talked about. Just a solid foreign language film that I would recommend to any giant monster fan. It does have those 98 Godzilla similarities, to be sure. But there's a lot of fun that comes out of that and a lot of interesting talking points. So Troll's number 9.
Oh, wow. I'm surprised you put it so high. Interesting. My next one is Troll Hunter.
There you go.
I think that this is superior in the Trollverse. But yeah, I really like Troll Hunter, and just Hans alone elevates that movie for me.
Oh, yeah. Hans. My number 8 is Attack the Block. So a little bit higher than yours, Alex. Yeah, I love that gang of characters in that scenario we get ourselves in, and I like the empathy that is built in that movie. It's saying something. It's not too over the top with its messaging, but I like what it does there.
Yeah. What movie was that, Eric?
Attack the Block.
Attack the Block. Yeah, I'm really interested to see what this next movie is going to be like.
Yeah, we'll see.
I don't know. It's taking place so much longer. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Next for me is Big Man Japan. I really love this movie. I would tell people to shut it off after a certain point. So it's got a pretty enormous caveat, ignore the last 10 minutes.
Yeah. But
man, there's just something about this movie that
it is grown captures on you, Alex.
My imagination, and just the laughs are some of the best laughs I've had in a while.
Yeah.
Again, the dropping the baby and the baby demon or whatever, baby monster, and it immediately going to heaven after biting his nipple.
You love that.
And then everybody being mad at Big Man Japan. It's just so funny, dude. There's just so many comedic moments that really hit for me. Yeah. So Big Man Japan somehow made it this high on my list despite not having a great final 10 minutes.
Well,
or so.
I'll tell you, Alex, at this point I have now heard the phrase biting his nipple from you more times than I ever would have imagined on this show. So we're up to like 4 or 5 at this point. So we'll see how many more times you can sneak it in. But yeah, that's impressive. My number 7, I think this is a little too high, honestly. If I had to reorder this list, I did knock it down a little bit based off my initial ranking. But How from Beyond the Fog, I still think you're right. I think I could push that down and push a couple other up. But yeah, I think what it's trying to do is really interesting, and I think actually the practical effects are awesome. The puppetry work in that movie is awesome. So maybe with a rewatch, I would say, no, actually, this was really cool. Some of the story elements don't stick quite as well, but that's hard to do whenever you are working solely with puppets. So yeah, How from Beyond the Fog is my number 7.
That's a good pick. And my next one is probably going to be one of my most contentious with how low it is.
Yeah.
And again, we're in love territory.
Yeah, we're in the territory where like we actually are going to share some of these final like top 6, top 5 films. So.
So my number 7 is actually The Host.
Yeah.
Eric, this is a movie that is revered and considered by many to be the best monster movie. And while I do not dispute that it is very, very good, it is not. You and me, I think, both landed on it being maybe not quite as good for us as maybe it's made out to be. But that being said, it's still phenomenal with really great character moments. A weird ending, a little bit. We both disputed a little bit of the ending and how odd and maybe forced it is. But this is a great creature feature for sure. So definitely want to recommend to any monster movie fan. Yeah. And I love the characters in it, but it's just missing a few elements to keep it from being closer to the top.
Right. My number 6, Alex, is Underwater. Watched it twice now, and that's a great movie. Really, really well done. We both commented upon the fact that with another watch, I think it was better, like the second time around. I mean, David Marshall might not be able to watch that movie more than once, but we would be happy to rewatch that movie.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And Eric, that's my next one. That's my number 6 as well. Nice. Is Underwater. This is a great alien movie.
Yep. Yeah.
This is a great Alien 6 or 7 or whatever. Right. But I love these kind of alien type movies. There's a couple. Pitch Black is another one that I think is also great. And Underwater is... It's got some... It's not like got twists and turns, but it has that tension. And it's a quick 90-minute movie that never stops from the first minute. It just blitzes you the whole time. And what's the most impressive about it is that you don't become numb to it throughout.
Yeah.
You may not get as much character work as some people would like, but I think you and me both agreed on this, that we actually felt like the characters were actually pretty fleshed out, that the film manages to do a lot with a little. And so I really like that about the film.
Yeah. No, great choice. We're in alignment there. My number 5 is Reign of Fire. I love Reign of Fire. We already gushed about it, so I'm not going to continue here. Number 5, Reign of Fire. What you got?
My next one is Love and Monsters. I was big on this movie when we reviewed it. You and me butted heads over this and Psycho Gorman. But I really enjoyed this movie and some of the monsters that are in it, and just the overall like traveling nature in the beat by beat moments of the film. So it's all the way up there. That is what I would like to rewatch and see how I feel about it still.
Yeah. My number 4 is The Ritual. Love The Ritual. It's the scariest movie in this list, hands down.
By far.
Scariest movie we've watched on the show, hands down.
Yes.
Jeez Louise, man. That movie is something else. I don't actually know. Sure, I can't recommend that to everybody. But for those that appreciate horror movies, a horror movie that turns out to have a giant monster, got to recommend The Ritual.
Definitely. And that's why it's my number 4 as well, Eric. What a phenomenal, surprisingly good movie, man. I didn't expect it to be as creepy as it was, and I did not expect it to have the giant monster really.
No.
And,
good one.
It's a very, very good movie. Really interesting themes and just things to say. And,
the episode discussion was great. And that was a good discussion, for sure. Go back and listen to that episode if you haven't already. The Ritual. And watch that movie if you're interested, and then listen to our episode. I think it was a good one. My number 3 film, Alex, Annihilation. As I said earlier, number 3, that's pretty high on my list. I wouldn't have replaced it with one of our original films, but this is and I think I did vote for this one in our original poll. But Annihilation, I think, again, this is a great movie to discuss. And so, like lots of these films, also they just add enjoyment whenever you can have a good discussion about them. And Annihilation does that for me. In addition to its fantastic performances, fantastic camera work, interesting and engaging themes. I really appreciate Annihilation.
Yeah, and that's why it's my number 3 as well,
Nice.
Eric. Yeah, I loved Annihilation. What a nice surprise. I knew people liked it, but you never know when people talk about it.
You're like, oh, Eric likes it,
what
but
it's
he's
really
he's
gonna be
pretentious.
Well, it's also Alex Garland, who I really like.
Yeah.
But I had heard all kinds of weird things about this film that like weren't in it, like a dance sequence and stuff. And I'm like, that's not in the film. I don't know. I heard all kinds of weird stuff about this film, and then like half of the things I heard weren't in it. So that's a whole other thing. I don't even know what that's about.
Well, but that means I'm moving on to my number 2. Alex, your second from the bottom. My second from the top is Nope. Yeah, this is an amazing movie. There's so much to discuss. I just love how it progresses. I love how it turns into Neon Genesis Evangelion. I love the ending. When I rewatched this film with Neely, I enjoyed it just as much the second time around. So Nope is my number 2.
All right. My number 2 is Reign of Fire.
Nice.
Man, rarely do I have a movie that surpasses my old feelings. So this one's tinged with a little nostalgia, admittedly. Rating it probably this high, but when I think about that movie, all I do is gush over it. And there's no caveat about it. There probably would have been before I watched it. But now, there's no caveat. I'm like, this is a really fun movie with, like, there's not bad acting in it. There's not bad effects or anything really corny or cheesy. Like, it's just all like like we've already said, they commit, man. And what a fun movie.
Yeah, it's great.
Definitely all over this one.
Now, my number 1. Yeah.
Eric, your number 1, it has to be what's the only thing that's left, which I'm a little surprised by.
Well, if you remember, you and Faye weren't as into this film, which was our number 1 film chosen by our listeners, which was The Host. The Host is, a top tier film for me. Probably, I mean, it is my number 1 film on this list. I could see a couple other films making their way to that spot, but The Host holds up, and I just think thematically it gives me a lot to chew on and to think about, in addition to being a great creature feature. So The Host is my number 1.
Yeah. It definitely a great movie. My number 1, Eric, Colossal. Absolutely love this movie. Yeah, I absolutely love this movie. I
was trying to think what it was. I couldn't think. I was like, oh yeah, Colossal. All right, nice.
Yeah, I think I put it at the top last time we did it, and it still sticks there. This is a movie I reflect on very, very fondly. I love its themes and characters and just how it plays with, again, this genre mashup. But unlike A Monster Calls, which is still good, this one really does something interesting and really effective with its effects and also its lack of the use of effects by leaving some of the worst stuff to your imagination. This movie is, from top to bottom, like, just stellar. And I can't recommend this one enough.
Yeah. Nope. You're right on the money there. Alex, Colossal is a great film. That leaves us, that brings us to our end, Alex, and our film that we will watch next week as we start our animated monster series. So our animated monster series is a go. Next week, we'll be watching My Neighbor Totoro. Will it be too slow, or will it put on a show?
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what we think of Totoro. Will it make us say rut-row? Or make us want to throw elbows? Those are both bad things. But, yeah. Maybe
It will
like
challenge
it
the status quo, I think, Alex, for what we have come to
there you
watch
go.
on our series. So, as always, thank you for listening to Monsters vs. Men. You can leave us feedback on this episode at mvmpod.com. Tell us how bad our rankings are. Email us at mvmpod@gmail.com. Become a bargain basement at patreon.com/mvmpod. Receive weekly bonus content. Monsters vs. Men is produced by Alex Cornett. Executive producers are Kevin Alexander, Faye Basier, Christopher Clavero, John Freeman, and Michael Herndon. Special thanks to our wives, Rock Band for PlayStation 3, which forms Cell Block B, Louis Loops, Senior Honda, Drew the Collector, Instagram Connector, and you, the listener, for listening. Until next time, don't
Put Nope near the top of your list.
and try to stay
alive.
Mafia, wake up, wake up.
You have created a monster and it will destroy you.
And we've got the sexiest monster to purple underwear big man Japan.
Okay, I didn't know which creature or person you were going to give that to.